Welcome to It's Called Soccer, the show that brings you the biggest stories, the best guests, and so much more. I'm Rebecca Lowe, host of the Premier League on NBC, and I'm joined by 8-time Premier League winner, Mr. Gary Neville. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your shows and your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. We have a new episode that comes out every single Wednesday. Here's what's coming up on today's show. Gary tells us all about his huge interview with Manchester United's Sir Jim Ratcliffe.
We don't hear from FSG, we don't hear from Cronkiers, we don't hear from Daniel Levy. It was a big thing for him to stand up there and be a Manchester United owner.
We talk the Club World Cup $1 billion prize pot, and also are we okay with an extended half-time in the World Cup final?
If Bruce Springsteen comes on in the midst of Germany playing Argentina in a World Cup final, just extend that half-time for at least 45 minutes.
Following their huge game at Wembley Stadium on Saturday, Gary challenges Sidemen to take on the overlap.
Are they good, these guys?
Oh, let's get it on. Let's get it on the calendar.
Sidemen, come and get us with the overlap.
We discuss the problems at LA Galaxy with Dax McCarty.
The only thing you need to know about MLS is the only thing that is predictable about it is that it is the most unpredictable league in the world.
March Madness arrives on It's Called Soccer. Harry Kane, Andy Cole.
Oh.
Gary. And Michael Fassbender drops by to talk acting, soccer, and Liverpool.
The first time I ever went to Anfield was for the semi-final against Barcelona, which was, obviously one of the greatest games ever.
That's all coming up on this week's episode of It's Called Soccer. Gary, you've had a big week. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a bit of a morning, Gary. Bit of a morning. I'm old school, just putting it out there. I like paper and pen, and I always like to print out the running order, whatever you guys call it, for this show. So I have it on literal pen and paper next to me, and then I make my notes. I had some more questions and different stuff, right? So I come down this morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. Printer's not working. Okay, change the ink, put new ink in. It's the wrong ink. Have you literally ever heard of anything more ridiculous? The ink is wrong. So that doesn't work. So there I am thinking, what do I do now? So I decide to write it all out, handwrite it. 8 pages long. Okay, done that, great. I gotta go and get Teddy's breakfast going. I gather up all the paper. By the way, I've got like ink all over my hands. I gather up all the paper that's sort of everywhere, that's been in and out of the printer and the whole palaver of the morning, and I put the whole lot in the shredder, including the 8 pages, half an hour brainstorm notes for this show in the shredder. I'm an idiot. I feel sick to my stomach. I want to cry. And I thought, right, that's it. Maybe that is me being fast forwarded into 2025. So now I've got an iPad with the rundown on it, which is very weird. And it was just one of those like flipping heck those mornings.
Bloody hell, but Rebecca, they're not the Beatles' original lyrics for like Let It Be or something. You know what I mean? It's your notes for a podcast.
Wasn't that Gary Neville? Without those notes, there would be no podcast. Can I just tell you? And they were as good as Let It Be by the Beatles.
Do you want me to show you my notes? I did my notes for the Ratcliffe thing yesterday. It's interesting this. You just mentioned
notes. Yeah, go on then. Let's have a look.
Right
Yeah.
then.
Sorry, listener, watcher. Just wait a second. Gary gets his notes.
So this is what I've started to do for...
Okay, let's have a look.
So I basically broke it into 6 sections.
Right, all on one page. Okay, like that.
So it's like football, players recruitment, people glazers, money, stadium, summary.
Gary, thank you for sharing your secrets with me and the rest of the world. That is probably something that you need to frame when you get another Emmy for that interview.
If I get another Emmy, you'll be devastated, wouldn't you? Imagine if I got another Emmy.
I'm flipping done. Me, my printer, my ink. Shred me, by the way. Gary, you sat down on Monday, what a day, with Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who, of course, last year became minority owner of Manchester United, took over full control of football operations from the Glazers, who also own the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, of course. And it was an eye-opening interview. It was, you told me 6 months ago in Central Park that you're not a journalist. Can I just say that was a very strong journalistic interview? It was excellent. You don't have to respond. I'm just giving you a compliment. It's available over on our sister channel, The Overlap. So let's just take a quick look at a few of the key things that Sir Jim said to you.
What he's got out of the players that he's got available, I think he's done well with.
Do you?
I do, yeah.
So you think the recruitment from last summer will come good?
Yes.
Would you have sacked Eric if you'd have found another manager after the FA Cup final success?
It was too early for us to make a big decision in reality. We gave Eric the benefit of the doubt.
And regret that, or do you feel...
Yeah, it was the wrong decision. We made the wrong decision. It was an error. Manchester United would have run out of money at the end of this year. November this year, the club runs out of cash.
Do you realise how bad that is to hear?
I mean, I know, a lot of people have a problem with the Glazer family and what have you, but
rightly so, Jim.
Well, to an extent, but remember...
They've run the club. I mean, what the problems you've talked about of running the club, the £270 million that has been increased has been under their stewardship, the poor performance, the poor recruitment, the debt, the increasing debt, it's all on them.
So if you want to watch that full interview, it is available over on the Overlap. I think my first question, Gary, to you is, did you leave that interview with Sir Jim feeling more positive about the future of United than you were when you walked in?
I think I did, because I've been like a broken record or a stuck record for the last 5, 6, 7 years, and people have at times, when I've been calling out the Glazer family for not speaking, for not communicating to the fans, for not investing in the stadium, for not investing in the training ground, and wanting answers, and seeing the cash reserves, by the way, sort of drip down to nothing over a period of 4 or 5 years. I've asked for people to stand up and speak, and Manchester United, and if you're an owner of United, you're in a statesman-like position, and I have to say yesterday that there were certainly some more points in that interview where Jim was uncomfortable. He was uncomfortable because he found himself in a position whereby he couldn't criticise his partners and shareholders.
And I don't think he actually can anyway, can he, contractually?
No, he can't.
Say anything bad about the Glazers?
You wouldn't do that publicly. You wouldn't do that in private. You're in business with people and you're trying to get to the same sort of angle. And they are the majority shareholder in the club. But a lot of the things that he was pointing towards, like we're running out of cash, we've employed 500-600 people too many in the last 5-6 years. It's obvious where he was obviously, it's not him that's employed those people. It's not him that's run up these costs. It's not him that's drained the cash. It's not him that's put the debt on the club with all these sort of horrific interest payments. It's not him that's recruited shockingly for the last 10 years and the point whereby we now owe 350 million to other clubs. All these things have been done before he's come in. Now, there's no doubt he's made some mistakes in that first 12 months since he's come in. He admitted to the mistake around Eric Ten Hag. He sort of fronted up on the Dan Ashworth one and said we just got it wrong and we just had to correct it quickly. Well, I like Dan, but if they think he got it wrong, at least he's fronted up and spoken about it. So I felt more positive because someone was communicating. I felt most positive because on Friday I went into the very last regeneration meeting for the task force. We've been closed down now, disbanded. It's no longer required. But I've enjoyed that last 12 months. And when I saw the plans on Friday for Old Trafford, look, they're ambitious plans. But I've been shouting and screaming for years, Rebecca, build a new stadium. Get the training ground right. Football, that's a little bit more erratic. That might sort of, if you like, take time to come. And some of the football at this moment in time is woeful. We're well short. But I'm patient enough with United if I feel like the right things are going on around the club. So I don't like some of the things at the moment. I don't like the former player stuff. I don't like the food. I don't like the ticket prices. I don't like the FA Cup travel. I don't like those decisions. I don't think they need to be made. I think the decisions that could have been put off and that we could get the big decisions right. But one thing I've been banging on about is these things about stadium infrastructure and for owners to come in and stop the continual poor decision making over 10 years. So we didn't even have a football department. We didn't have a sporting director, a technical director. We didn't have a CEO who understood football before. At least we've got some things in place which give us a chance, and there is disruption to the Glazers. So I came out of the interview understanding that Jim Ratcliffe was never going to be able to sit there and criticise his partners, but he almost did so without actually doing it by just pointing towards the things that he was having to clean up.
I get that, and I understand what you mean about now there are people in the building that are football people and will make better decisions. But I suppose the track record, just that he's had over that 1 year now, those football decisions have not been good. And the Eric Ten Hag error that he owned up to, like you say, at least he owned up and he was honest about it. But at the time that they made that decision, him and Barada and Sir Dave Brailsford, there were very, very few people who thought it was a good idea at the time. And I think when I was watching Sir Jim, I was thinking, I love the honesty, but I'm concerned that they are still making poor decisions. Fast forward onto these things you just mentioned and just listed. That's a PR thing as much as anything else, because Sir Jim did try to explain about the £66 situation, how it wasn't quite as clear or as was being reported. again, the people below him don't seem to be reflecting what he wants or what he's about. That, I think, all of that, it feels like it's continuously mistakes. I didn't come out thinking, okay, all the mistakes are done now. I think that's what would concern me.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I think a lot of people outside of the club that are not fans of the club couldn't believe that Erik ten Hag was awarded a new contract. However, the majority of Manchester United fans, who sometimes, when you're amongst the sort of detail of it and the emotion and the passion, you can't see the wood for the trees properly.
Yeah.
And when you've had this sort of flip flopping of managers, and you've seen managers kicked out the club for a period of 10 years, 4 or 5 managers before Eric, and then they go and beat City in the cup final. And then I think Jim's point was actually a good one around maybe if he had a decent structure around him with Dan Ashworth, Jason Wilcox, Omar Barada, Dave Brailsford, he might be able to succeed because he's had no real structure around him. Most Manchester United fans, Rebecca, after that cup final, did want to see Erik ten Hag keep his job.
Wow.
And I know that, look, we were all wrong, the ones who said keep him, but we like our managers at Old Trafford and we're loyal to, fans are loyal to the manager. I thought the Dan Ashworth one was a bigger problem in my mind. If you're looking at implementing cultural change at a club, Dan Ashworth at the FA, that's what he did. He did that at another couple of clubs as well. He's a very steady guy, Dan. He's a solid guy. He's probably the type of character that Manchester United needed, I think, in this period whereby there is going to be redundancies, there is going to be massive transformation and change with the playing staff and the style, and obviously bringing in new managers. So I thought Dan's one was more of a strange one than the Eric one, looking back. So look, he owned up on both of them and he answered every single question. And I asked him, to be fair, I've been waiting to do that interview, Rebecca, for 6-7 years about the cash, the debt, the stadium, the decisions that the club make. It's not through research, it's through just living it every day with every United fan and seeing and feeling what United fans feel. And look, there were some moments that were challenging, and I felt it was challenging for him at times. I could see it in his face, but I also understand that it was a big thing for him to stand up there and be a Manchester United owner. We don't hear from FSG, we don't hear from Bowley and the other guy at Chelsea, we don't hear from Kroenke's, we don't hear from Daniel Levy, we don't hear from Abramovich, we don't hear from any of them, by the way, we don't hear from the Glazer family. So I'm sat here and think that's ridiculous that these clubs are beyond the owners. They're bigger than the owners. They're the temporary owners and custodians of football clubs, these guys. The fans are the people who are going to be there forever. I'm not being emotional and sort of, passionate here to a level whereby I'm saying that ultimately, what are owners? Owners put a lot of money in, they buy clubs, I get it, I understand business. However, in football clubs, I think you should be forced to communicate as an owner to the fans. And these guys are hiding for year after year, decade after decade. Jim Ratcliffe stood up yesterday and did interviews and spoke and actually put himself in an uncomfortable position. I think there is an element of that needs, I think people have recognised that, because the rest of the clubs and the owners, they don't speak.
He did think that they'd seen progress. He's seen progress. You obviously, clearly, the way you interviewed him, didn't really agree. Do you think he had to say that? Because he couldn't really say, I haven't seen any, could he? But he's still the right man.
When he said he'd seen progression over the sort of Ruben Amirom being at United, I asked, obviously, do you think he's progressed? I think Ruben Amirom's had a torrid start in terms of results. I think that he's had a torrid start in terms of injuries that he's obviously had at this moment in time. And I think that the club at this moment in time, he's looking at it thinking, what the hell's going on? And he's called them the worst Man United team in history. So Ruben Amirom is so honest. What I like about Ruben Amirom is interviews, his energy. I think he's obviously, I think he's got a good thing about him in terms of standards and principles, what he's done with the players that he shipped out and got rid of people that the fans were getting frustrated with, that maybe weren't giving their all. So from that perspective, I think they should back him. He needs support. He's a young manager and he's coming at a very difficult time in the season.
Let's finish on the stadium. It is going to be massive. It looks like a spaceship. It's going to do great things for the local economy. They think they can build it in 5 years as soon as they break ground. I suppose they just need to make sure they have the money ready to go. I'm not even sure that's been confirmed yet, Gary. But if you're a Man United fan today, waking up and looking at those stadium plans, you're thinking, this is my club. That is what we should be.
Look, It's knocked me sick this last 10 years. At Hotel Football, the hotel that I own opposite Old Trafford, we have a great view, and I've talked about the rusting steel work, the roof leaking, all the things that Old Trafford... We know Old Trafford's a special stadium when you're inside it. It presents brilliantly, but it really is struggling to cope with modern football. And the idea that Manchester United 25 years ago had the best stadium in the country, the best team in the country, the best training ground in the country, right? All it needed was investment over the sort of what would be 15 years after that to maintain it in that state. They've just not spent a penny on it, the Glazer family. We now obviously got a new stadium plan. It looks absolutely spectacular. Yeah, it's not Old Trafford, it's not got the history of Old Trafford, but will be a modern, iconic stadium that looks absolutely mind-blowing. If Manchester United in 5-6 years' time are in a position where that stadium's complete, the training ground's world class, I like to think then what happens is standards rise, some better decisions are being made on the football side, and the club can get back to being in a competitive state. I would take that all day long. It's Called Soccer is brought to you by our partner FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Whether you want to bet on the match result, your favourite player to score or assist, or live bet a winner in stoppage time, FanDuel is the place to get in on the action. Plus, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. That's $150 in bonus bets. Just go to fanduel.com/ICS. And if you already love betting on the big match, well, FanDuel is giving out same-game parlay profit boost tokens every weekend for a chance to increase your winnings. Just go to fanduel.com/ICS to get in on the action. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. And if you win, the payouts are instant. Make every moment more with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Must be 21 plus and present in select states, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com.
I want to get going on a couple of news items. Now, we know about you turning 50 and life begins at 50 and all these things you want to get done on your bucket list.
Yeah.
But there was one situation I don't think was on your bucket list.
It was.
Was it? Playing guitar live on stage? Let's have a little look.
I can prove it.
Where are you? Let's see. I can't see you. Oh my goodness, the moves, Gary Neville. The facial expression, the joy. How fun was that? Are you actually playing that?
No.
No, okay. Just checking.
So, these are the 10 things I've never done, right?
Right.
That was done. So, Ashes, High Rocks Race, Safari, Glastonbury, North Coast 500 camper van, Oktoberfest, 50th birthday Camp Neville, which I did, play guitar with a singer on stage for one song.
Wow.
There it is. Can you see it there?
There you go. Yeah. Well played. But you can't play guitar though. You mean just like mime guitar on stage for one song?
Snow bike across Canada and get a tattoo. But on the guitar, but basically I ticked off one of my ones on Saturday night. So I didn't even know I was doing it. I got to the concert, a band called The Raytons, Reytons for everybody. They're a band that haven't got a manager. They promote themselves. They're not signed to a label. They're unique. They're selling out 5,000 venues, 10,000, 20,000 venues. Yeah. They don't get played on the radio. I've been on BBC Breakfast with them this morning. They're absolutely amazing. They're fantastic, honestly. And so I went and watched them on Saturday night. A friend of mine, Stephen, who, to be fair, introduced me to them, took us. And they said, look, why don't you come up on stage? Do one song with us. It's a Manchester crowd. It's 5,500. I thought, go on, say yes.
There you go. And now you've raised their profile, and no doubt they'll be playing to many, many more.
Hope so.
Couple of football items for you. Don't know if you saw this week, Club World Cup, that's obviously going to be in the United States this coming summer. Lots of controversy. Didn't have a TV broadcaster. Now it does. Lots of, I think it's 32 teams. Lots of kind of like, what are we doing? Far too much football. Well, how the world changed when we throw in $1 billion as the prize money, which, by the way, means that the winner will take home around 100 million for playing 7 games, and that is the equivalent, Gary, of winning the Champions League. That changes everything, doesn't it?
Unfortunately, yes, in the sense that all these clubs in England and around Europe have got PSR issues, and to be honest with you, the idea of too much football, too many games, players being run into the ground, all fair points. However, when you throw £1 billion in and you give clubs the opportunity to earn £100 million for a month's football, when, if you think about it, that takes you a season's football in the Premier League, and in Spain and Italy and others, you probably don't even get that money. So it's an unbelievable opportunity, and for clubs from other parts of the world that are obviously even worse off than in Europe, then it's an incredible proposition. And with the current plight of the clubs around PSR and what's happening in the game, rising costs, it's going to actually, I think, underpin the success of this tournament, and I think it will mean it's very competitive because there's a big prize at stake, and that's sad, and that's why we talk about the FA Cup every year. We talk about other competitions losing their value. If you put £1 billion on the FA Cup, all of a sudden the FA Cup would become an incredibly important competition, and that's the reality of it here. We're talking about a money-driven game whereby for some things have slipped.
And if people haven't seen this news, as soon as the first lineups drop, the Man Cities and the Chelseas and the Real Madrids and those lineups, and they see who's playing, oh, this isn't just some, weak summer tournament. Gianni Infantino, one of your faves, has been throwing money at that competition and also talking about a Super Bowl style halftime show to the World Cup final in 2026. Which we all know, halftime in football is supposed to be 15 minutes. Copa America, they had Shakira, that was 25 minutes. Not sure that went down that well in terms of with the players. Super Bowl, I think, is really, I want to say a good half an hour, but it's a different sport. I don't hate this because it's in America and it's the culture of a showpiece event with a half an hour or however long halftime. They can make it work. I'm actually okay with this. Maybe I'm unpopular, maybe I'm wrong. Thoughts?
Look, I'm not going to die. Look, we can argue till the cows come home about the history of football, what football should be, but also football does need to evolve. And I'm not going to die in a ditch over a half an hour World Cup final. It will depend on who's singing for me, to be fair.
What if it's Bruce Springsteen? You'd be like, hour. Let's do an hour.
If Bruce Springsteen comes on in the midst of Germany playing Argentina in a World Cup final...
Which is not a bad shout, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to see him 4 times this year. I'm like, just extend that half time for at least 45 minutes. Let's have at least, three different parts of the game. No, so look, if you're going to do it in a World Cup final, do it away from Premier League football, do it away from FA Cup, do it over in America whereby there is a World Cup, and maybe it can catch on and maybe fans will like it. And maybe
do it with Bruce.
And what he will do is, the ticket prices for World Cup finals are already horrific.
Yeah.
It'll mean that he'll put the ticket price up even more, which is what it is. There's nothing we can do to stop Infantino and FIFA. They're going to do what they want. We're far too far away from that in this country. But what I would say is that it's not something I'm going to die in a ditch over. It's not going to ruin the game, I don't think. But we've just got to accept that this guy and this organisation is going to pretty much do what it wants, and there's no point in shouting about it.
One other thing, I don't know if you saw this, Gary, the charity match at Wembley Stadium on Saturday between Sidemen FC and the YouTube All-Stars, basically a load of streamers getting together, playing a match for charity, raising nearly $7 million. But what really got me, that's fantastic, by the way, but the tickets for this in a 90,000-seater stadium sold out within a few hours. 8 million people at its peak watched it, and since it has finished, 17 million people have watched it in a matter of days. Number one, it's the power of YouTube, but this is a different world we're living in, Gary Neville.
Do you know something? I just thought about it. We need to get an overlap team together and go and play them, don't we, at Wembley next year?
I think it might be a little bit younger, though. It might be a bit of an age situation there, no?
For who, sorry? We're young at heart.
They might be a little younger, but then I suppose you even it out by, Premier League titles, so... You
think will they beat us? Or I don't know. I'm asking the question. Are they good, these guys? Or...
Oh, let's get it on. Let's get it on the calendar.
Sidemen, come and get us with the overlap. We've got...
So you, Jamie, Righty, Roy, Jill...
Scholesy, Wazza...
Oh my gosh.
Peter Schmeichel in net. Overlapping guests. We could be an amazing sort of team for them to play against. Come on, let's get it on. Why not?
Right, everybody, another really entertaining weekend of Major League Soccer. Both Philadelphia Union and Vancouver Whitecaps have kept up their 100% records. They're top of their respective conferences. Different story for LA Galaxy, the reigning Major League Soccer champions, losing their third straight game in a row at the start of the season, rooted bottom, of course, of their conference. To talk a little bit more about the demise of the Galaxy and a few other things so far this season, delighted to be joined by a player who has made 488 Major League Soccer appearances for 6 different clubs and is now a regular analyst for Apple TV's MLS Season Pass coverage. It is Welcome to It's Called Soccer, Dax McCarty. Thanks for joining us, Dax.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's a pleasure to join.
So the LA Galaxy is really interesting. I heard Landon Donovan say at the beginning of the season, before it even started, and of course that's his club, that he was concerned. Yes, you won it last season, or they won it last season, but he had some concerns having lost a few players over the off-season. 3 straight defeats to start the season. What's going wrong, Dax?
Yeah, Landon was correct to be concerned about this team. This is the nature of MLS. This is the nature of success in a league like MLS with salary restrictions and salary cap rules. Once you win an MLS Cup, everybody wants a raise. And in people's contracts, usually they have incentives and bonuses. And listen, the LA Galaxy, they had 3 designated players, all who were extremely productive and had extremely good seasons. One of them in Ricky Puig, who was one of, if not the most influential players in the league, certainly the most influential player on that LA Galaxy team. So when you lose him and then you lose your striker in Dejan Joveljic, he deserved to be a designated player in MLS, but you can't pay him because you already have all those spots occupied. It just becomes this cascade of players that you're losing who were so valuable to you, and it's very difficult to replace those players. And so I don't envy the position that Greg Vanney is in right now. This is a team that is having to rely on a lot of unproven players, a lot of young players. And quite frankly, this is an LA Galaxy team who it could continue to get worse before it gets better.
I hope so, Dax, because on the you'll understand.
Ouch.
I hope so, because they're going to Portland at the weekend. Talk to us about that game. Obviously, Portland lost last weekend, so I obviously look out for Phil's result all the time.
Sure.
I don't get to watch all the games, but obviously they've had an up and down start. Do you think they can beat LA Galaxy then at the weekend with how Galaxy have started?
I do. I do, Gary. And listen, I think Portland. Look, let's be honest about Portland. They are, I think, in a pretty similar situation as the LA Galaxy. They, for one reason or another, reasons that are probably kept internal, had to move on from their most influential player as well, in Evander, a guy who a lot of people, my colleague Bradley Wright Phillips included, thought that Evander was the most valuable player in Major League Soccer last year. So when you lose a player of that influence who had so much say in how well that attack did last year, and then you add on to the fact that their fulcrum in midfield, Diego Chara, is a year older. Their one of their strikers in Jonathan Rodriguez is struggling with a pretty significant injury right now. This is a team that is in flux, and I don't envy the job that Phil has trying to put the pieces back together. Because quite frankly, this is a team that looks to be in the lower echelon of talent, in my opinion, of teams in MLS. And so he's got a difficult job on his hands. They got a big win 2 weeks ago where their new designated player signing, David DaCosta, scored a goal. So you're going to need him, Phil and that whole fan base and that club is going to need him to step up and contribute right away, because they are playing a wounded animal in the LA Galaxy. And you know as well as I do that the Portland Timbers at home, they should always be the favorite to win the game.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. I'll be waking up early in the morning to find out what's going on again. So talk to me about Olivier Giroud. I mean, it's a bit of a mystery. I know he's 38 and he's getting on, but he's really struggling, isn't he?
Olivier Giroud is having what I would classify as a little bit of a nightmare in Major League Soccer. And listen, you guys all know that analysts, our job is to analyze, and I think every single analyst who saw the Olivier Giroud signing said this was going to be a smashing success in Major League Soccer, merely for the fact that he was playing so well for AC Milan no more than a couple of months before he got to Major League Soccer. He was scoring goals in bunches. He was starting games. He's fit. He's a top professional. And so it seemed like it would translate well to Major League Soccer. It most definitely has not. I think he's on 17 or 18 appearances in MLS, 0 goals scored. And you could go through all the different scenarios of why that's the case, but I don't want to let Olivier Giroud off the hook because I respect him so much as a player. I just don't think he's been good enough. He's had plenty of chances to get off the mark, and he has not scored. Now, this LAFC team, I do not think that their strengths portend to help Olivier Giroud. I think that they play with out-and-out wingers who are inverted, and so they're never really getting a ton of service into the box. Their wingers are going 1v1, cutting inside on their strong foot and trying to get shots on target, shots on goal. And quite frankly, guys, Jeremy Abobasi, who's a younger, similar profile of player to Olivier Giroud, has been more effective, and he has scored goals for this LAFC team. And so I don't know if Olivier Giroud is the right fit for this LAFC team, but they are going to have to make it work. Steve Cherundolo is going to have to try to make this work.
Is his general performance not contributing enough to the team either? Is he not sort of linking up play and bringing people into play and doing stuff that I always think... So for me, when Giroud played, he didn't always have to score to contribute to the team. Is he not even doing those bits well?
Gary, this last game that he played against the Seattle Sounders, I actually thought that his hold-up play and his link-up play was quite good. And to your point, I do think that he is a player that was never expected or relied upon to score 20, 25 goals a season. That was never the type of player that he was. But I need to go back to how MLS manages salary caps and how the roster designations are so important. Olivier Giroud is a designated player. You cannot have a designated player who is a striker on your team who just is a good link-up player, who's just a good target striker, who just brings other players into the play. You can do that in Europe where you have 7 or 8 other pieces around him that can carry that goal-scoring burden. You don't have that luxury in Major League Soccer. Your designated players need to produce. And so that is why I don't want to let Olivier Giroud off the hook here. I do think that he has been the victim of a little circumstances in terms of the team isn't necessarily built to play into his strengths, but that's not an excuse. I think that Olivier Giroud is a top professional, and I think that he holds himself to a high standard. And I think if you were to ask him, he would have said by now that he is disappointed in his goal output and he needs to figure out a way to make it right.
It's so interesting to actually talk about, you win the cup and you're almost punished then after that because everybody wants that pay rise, which means winning back-to-back MLS Cups is so difficult. Talking about who's doing well at the moment, just to end with, I talked about at the top Vancouver and Philadelphia who are top of their conferences and are 100% records. Just give me another team maybe or someone else who's impressed you, Dax, so far this season.
Well, I don't want to say Inter Miami because that would be the easy answer. But the truth is that this Inter Miami team is unbelievably impressive for an MLS squad. And I don't even want to talk about the big four players that they've put together from Barcelona, Messi, Busquets, Suarez, and Jordi Alba, because people talk about them ad nauseum. I want to give credit to the scouting department for the young players that they've brought in, for the players that they have been able to scout who they're able to convince to come over here. And by the way, I think having a Lionel Messi on your team is probably the best recruiting tool you could have. But this is a team who is going to have to find ways to rotate their roster because of the age of all of these superstars. And they've hit the ground running. They're unbeaten in MLS play thus far. They have a new coach in Javier Mascherano who has found a way to get the best out of these young pieces. And so Inter Miami is sitting very comfortably on 7 points. And I also want to give a special nod to the expansion team, San Diego FC, who, in my opinion, us as analysts, we have to make bold predictions. In preseason, I expected them to be bottom of the conference. They are laughing in my face right now, sitting in second place in the West, unbeaten. They've been really impressive. The way that they play soccer, the way that their game model is, they've put their money where their mouth is. They play a really nice, exciting brand of football. They keep possession. They build from the back. They're missing a dynamic piece. You guys know as well as I do, they've been linked to Kevin De Bruyne. So I think if they can add a special player like him in the summer, this team won't just make the playoffs, but I think they'll be a contender in MLS at the end of the season.
Dax, you're in great company, by the way, because Jamie Carragher predicted that Nottingham Forest would go down this season. They're currently sat in the Champions League.
Get a job, to be honest.
They're currently sat in the Champions League places, so don't worry about your predictions. You won't beat that one.
Well, the only thing you need to know about MLS is the only thing that is predictable about it is that it is the most unpredictable league in the world. So I don't lose too much sleep at night with my predictions.
We love it. Dax, loving your work on Apple as well. Thank you so much for joining us on It's Called Soccer. We'll speak to you soon.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dax. Thank you.
Right, we are back with this week's FanDuel's Picks of the Week, America's #1 sportsbook. We are all tied on 7 points going into this week. Gary, you jumped from bottom to joint top with me, and Jamie, after you predicted that result, the correct score, and Bruno Fernandes as the goal scorer in Manchester United Arsenal. Well done you. We have 3 more games this week, and Jamie has sent us in his picks. The first game is the second leg of the round of 16 Champions League tie on Wednesday between Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid. It's 2-1 to Real Madrid from the first leg. Jamie is going for 1-1. Gary, what are you going for?
Yeah, I think Real Madrid always go through, so I'm going to go 2-2.
Okay, 2-2, so Real Madrid go through on aggregate. I'm going to go 1-0 Real Madrid. So Real Madrid go through 3-1 on aggregate. As you say, Real Madrid, just one of those teams, always go through.
Yeah.
You can't bet against them, absolutely not. And if Arsenal go through, I think, in their game, then they'll meet, won't they, in the quarterfinals, which will be interesting, which Arsenal will go through because they're leading 7-1. Okay, Premier League, Arsenal against Chelsea on Sunday. I would like the score and a scorer from that game. Jamie is the 1-1 king. He went 1-1 between Arsenal and Chelsea in North London. You?
I would actually have gone that, but I'm going to obviously change my score. I'm going to go 2-1 Arsenal. And I'm going to go for Gabriel.
Gabriel is one of the scorers in a 2-1 victory at the Emirates.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am going to go for a 2-2 draw. I just think the victory for Chelsea against Leicester has given them a little bit of a pep in their step. And I'm going to say that Cole Palmer breaks his duck at the moment. It's a bit of a run. January the 14th was the last time he scored a goal, and we're now in mid-March. So I'm going to go, he's going to come back and have a good end to the season, Cole Palmer. The last one, Liverpool-Newcastle, Carabao Cup final on Sunday. Correct score and scorers. Jamie, of course, has gone for Liverpool to win 3-1. Who are you going for? Why?
Yeah, I'm at the game on Sunday. I don't see how Van Dijk, Salah are not lifting that trophy. Sometimes when you look at a team and you think, I just don't see how those two players are not getting through this game and winning it for their club. So I am going to go Liverpool. I think it'll be 2-0 Liverpool. And I'm going to go for a goal from... Diaz.
Okay, from Luis Diaz. I think I want Newcastle to win this.
I do.
Just based on
obviously.
I think most people do, yeah, of course. And so often that overtakes my mind when it comes to predictions, and I try and go with my heart, but I have to go with my head. I think it's going to be Liverpool, and I think it's going to be a big Liverpool win. I think it's going to be 4-1 to Liverpool, and I'm going to go with Mo Salah to get a goal and Liverpool to win their first trophy under Arne Slot.
Another good weekend to look forward to.
Now it is time to welcome a giant of Hollywood to It's Called Soccer. From X-Men to Steve Jobs, Assassin's Creed to 12 Years a Slave, he has quite literally done it all. Now starring in a spy thriller Black Bag, which comes out in movie theatres this coming Friday. A huge welcome to acting royalty and Liverpool supporter, sorry Gary, Michael Fassbender.
Hey guys.
Thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with Liverpool, shall we? Why Liverpool? How did that happen?
Actually, it was. It wasn't. It's a funny story actually, because all my family, Irish side of my family, is Man United actually, and I always looked up to my cousin Thomas. He was always sort of my hero, and I guess he felt like he needed to give something to his younger cousin. And he must have just had this sort of Liverpool memorabilia stuff, like the stuff you lick and stick in a car window and it flaps. So he just gave me all this Liverpool stuff. So I assumed he was a Liverpool supporter. So that's why I support Liverpool. And my dad, the German side of the family, he supports Arsenal. So we've got a real mix in the house.
What a shame.
Have you been to Anfield? What a shame. Have you been, Michael, to Anfield?
I have been to Anfield twice. The first time I ever went to Anfield was for the semi-final against Barcelona, which was, obviously one of the greatest games ever at Anfield, certainly in European football history. It was an incredible night. It was so inspiring, actually, just to see what a group of people could do. It seemed impossible. It was breathtaking. What was breathtaking first, and what was so impressive, was going into the stadium before the game had started, and there was such a huge mountain to climb, and the atmosphere was just electric. It was a great experience. Then the second time I went, my wife's sister's boy. What does that make him to me? A nephew? No, is that a cousin?
Yes. Yeah, nephew.
Anyway, he's a huge Liverpool fan. Like, for Christmas, he's like anything Liverpool. So he'd never been to Anfield. So I took him to see the Man U game, which was a pretty bad game, actually. It ended up 0-0. And so he was quite upset that the first time he'd been to Anfield, he never got to see him score a goal. But I never told him because I wasn't sure whether I could make it happen or not. We got to meet Klopp and Virgil van Dijk down on the pitch at Anfield, so it was pretty special.
Michael, your next film's going to be the job of playing someone who's played for Liverpool past and present. Who would that be?
Past and present. Ooh, it's a good one. I mean, I guess age, maybe I'd go Kenny Dalglish.
Good choice.
Present. Oh, that's a good one. Who would I go for?
Carragher? Jamie Carragher?
Present.
But he's no longer playing.
He's probably more present now than he was when he was playing, to be fair.
That or who else could I go for on the team right now? Maybe Alisson. I mean, that was a pretty spectacular performance against PSG. Jeez.
This team, generally, this season have been, under Arne Slot, surprisingly incredible, beating virtually everybody, Michael, in front of them. Surprise to you?
Yeah, I've got to say, I was such a huge Klopp fan. Like I say, that night, what they achieved sort of against Barcelona, and just his sort of energy and how he handled himself, in difficult times as well. The sort of loyalty to the team and his players, and just that positivity that he seemed to exude. I thought, wow, this is going to be, this could be a big hole now that's going to take a long time to get back and find an identity with the team. But he's been amazing. I mean, I think the difference that I've seen is they don't seem to, they're a lot more, it seems, confident in not chasing the ball down. They just sort of have a sort of organization to them which seems very calm and collected. And then, just to see, players like Gakpo just sort of blossom under Slot and just become this really, very dangerous player. And again, Mo Salah being, reignited to fantastic form. It's been amazing. He's done a great job.
Michael, you just talked about some qualities that exist within the Liverpool team. What do you think the important qualities are that make a great actor or actress?
I think the ability to sort of observe people, observational skills, I would say, to trust your instincts, and the ability to make a fool of yourself. To go for something and fall flat in your face, in a room full of strangers, to have that sort of bravery. And then I think it's something that I always look at sport. I'm always fascinated by sport and the psychology of sport. And I think what my idea why it becomes sort of addictive and why it's hard to walk away from is that thing of being just absolutely present in what you're doing moment to moment. And I think sport really focuses you to do that. And that's what I try to do with acting. But it's fleeting moments that you would get that.
Michael, just on a football changing room, you're all basically 25 blokes are crammed in, or women if it's a women's game, are crammed into a changing room all together tight. I went onto it wasn't a film set, but it was for a TV production, and everyone was in different trailers. And it only was when they were called out to do you're smiling a little bit, so I'm sort of, how's the camaraderie build within a film if you're not in the same changing room and you're all sort of maybe in different places and you just get called upon when it's your time to perform on a scene? Or is it different than I've imagined it?
That's a good question, actually. Sometimes, depending on the director and depending on the time you have, a lot of the times with the low-budget film, you might shoot it in 5 weeks. So in that case, a lot of directors will have some rehearsal time. You'll go out for dinners, to sort of have sort of bonding experience like that. And then a lot of the times, we'd be visiting each other in trailers. But for me, I'm working away in the trailer anyway, especially when I was doing that TV show. There's just so many lines to learn. And it's kind of like acting in front of the cameras is very much like sprinting. So you're resting, you're trying to stay relaxed and focused. And then when it's action, then you're on, and then cut, and then it's about sort of, pacing yourself and keeping your energy and doing it again when the time is right. So I think it's just, whatever people need to do to get into that, comfortable zone. Some people might like to just joke around or, kick a ball around. Other people might just be more studious. Other people might be listening to music, It really sort of depends. But everybody comes together in that moment, and that's when you've really, you've got to sort of turn on. But it is an interesting question, and certainly if you're doing theatre, you're spending a lot of time, rehearsing together. It's a different beast. That would be more like running a marathon,
Talk to us about this new film, Michael.
Oh yeah, it's called Black Bag. It's a film by Steven Soderbergh, who's amazing. He's done the Out of Sight, the Oceans films, Sex, Lies and Videotape. He's got an incredible catalogue of film. He's a very unique director because he actually lights the room himself. So he's the director of photography. He operates the camera 95% of the time himself. He's the director. And then that evening, whatever we've shot that day, he's editing it. So he's pretty phenomenal. It's a story about espionage, really. It's set in the espionage world. It's about this couple at the core of it, Catherine and George. Catherine's played by the great Cate Blanchett, and I play George. And George finds out early on in the film that there's a traitor within the organization, and he gets 5 names on a list, and one of the names is his wife. And so the film sort of revolves around, where his loyalty lies, either to his country or his wife. It's very, a sharp script, very intelligent, very funny. It's tongue-in-cheek. It looks really sexy. It's sleek. It's definitely a movie. It's a movie experience. 1 hour 34 minutes, perfect. And it's best seen in the cinema. People usually say that, but in this case, it's for sure true. We had a great cast in it, and it's great working with Stephen because he works so fast. You do like 1 take, 2 takes, 3 maximum, and then you're moving on. So it's you've got to be on your toes.
Great, sounds fantastic.
Yeah, it looks just brilliant just from the trailer I saw this morning. 2 very quick questions to finish with, Michael. First of all, you've got the League Cup final this coming Sunday against Newcastle United at Wembley. Give us a prediction. What do you think?
I'm always quite nervous with Liverpool predictions. I'm gonna say 2-1 Liverpool.
Okay, so the first trophy for Arne Slot. And then just finally, you mentioned that a lot of your family were Manchester United fans, Michael. Have you therefore quite enjoyed watching the demise of Manchester United over the last 12 years? Sorry to finish on a downer, Gary, but I've got to ask Michael that question.
This is got to go counter to every probably Liverpool fan's sort of deepest belief. I'm not like that. I mean, I guess because my mother's a fan of Man United, George Best, the link there, Roy Keane, and the team that you were in, Gary Neville. I remember I was doing the first job out of drama school, and we were doing a play, Three Sisters, and we were, I think, in Salisbury, and the game against Bayern Munich was on, and you guys were going for the treble. And I just had a lot of admiration for that team. Whenever I see any sport personality, individual, or in a team, achieve greatness, I just always find it quite inspiring. So no, I've never had that, glee in the demise of the club. Sorry.
Far too nice.
Michael, you're the nicest Liverpool fan I've ever met.
Michael Fassbender, thank you so much for joining us. Black Bag is coming out this Friday in movie theatres. We wish you the best of luck with it. It looks amazing. And thank you for your time on It's Called Soccer. We so appreciate it.
Thanks, you, Michael.
Rebecca.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
So, in the spirit, Gary, of March Madness, we've created our own Elite 8. Do you see what we did there? Bracket of the top 8 all-time Premier League top scorers. You have to pick who you would rather have in your starting lineup, from the following, okay? So for those who are listening, we have got a little bracket, and we've got 4 sort of quarterfinals. So we'll start with Mo Salah against Thierry Henry. Who are you going for? That's so odd, by the way. It's horrible. That's horrible. I know who you're going to go for. I think I know who you're going to go for.
Thierry Henry.
Yeah, okay. So we'll do Shearer against Aguero.
Shearer.
Harry Kane, Andy Cole.
Oh.
Gary.
Oh. I'll have to go Harry because of his England performances, but to be honest with you, it's hard to pick against Coley. Coley's not scored penalties, by the way. He's 187, and Harry Kane took penalties.
He had
on
one
213.
penalty. I know. He had one. He came in the studio at the weekend, actually. We had him in the studio. He said he had one penalty. He never wanted to take them. So interesting and a bit odd. Wayne Rooney or Frank Lampard? It's horrible, that, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But I mean, I can't go against Rooney. I think even Frank would probably pick Wayne, just purely because of his goals and his all-round play, yeah.
All right, the final 4 is Rooney, Shearer, Henry and Kane. So, Shearer or Henry? This is horrible.
Oh.
And it's not just goal scoring, obviously. 260 for Shearer, 175 for Henry. It's who would you want in your starting lineup?
I'd go more Shearer because I'd go Shearer for just purely absolute guarantee of everything. But Thierry Henry's unbelievable. I mean, yeah, Shearer.
Rooney or Kane to play Shearer in the final of the Championship.
I think Rooney at his peak. Rooney at his peak, 100%.
Right. So the final of this incredibly high-level game is Rooney against Shearer, and your winner is? Who would you want in your starting lineup?
It would be Rooney.
Rooney?
At their peak, Rooney, yeah, at the peak. We're talking about sort of like 2006 through to 8. Messi's not quite gone on to that level yet. Cristiano and Messi are just coming into that level where they're hitting those 40 goals a season. I think Rooney in that 2 or 3 years is sat right in there with them as the best player in the world. I think Rooney at his peak was everything that you would want in a football player. Defender, attacker, assister, passer, fighter, character, personality, engine, strength, honestly, header, everything. It's interesting. I ended up with Rooney against Shearer, which I'm unequivocally going for Rooney. But if I'd have ended up, I don't know why, maybe Thierry Henry should have been in there against Rooney. I don't know. When I think about world stage centre forwards and sort of how you play, probably Henry, Rooney, but Shearer can't be dismissed when it comes to Premier League goal scoring. It can't. He's just anyway.
We could go on all day, Gary.
Yeah,
but luckily for you, we're done. That's all we have time for on this week's episode of It's Called Soccer. Make sure you join us next Wednesday for a brand new episode. We're going to be joined by Lille and Canada's superstar striker, Jonathan David. Don't forget to subscribe, Apple, Spotify and YouTube, and we will see you next Wednesday. Have a great week. Bye for now.
Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts. Or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York.